The fall of Orion Station Commander Raal of the Dominion fleet leaned forward, his scaled brow creasing. "English?" he muttered. "Impossible." That system was sterilized. His crew confirmed the data. The signal was real, coming directly from the shattered husk of Orion Station, once the largest human military hub beyond Sol. According to history, it had been vaporized in the first wave of the Dominion crusade. Raal hesitated, feeling a chill his kind rarely felt. "Send a recon wing," he ordered. "Let's see what ghosts humans leave behind." Hours later, 3 small Dominion scout craft dropped from warp near the ruins of Orion. The planet below was a lifeless rock, ash-gray, its surface scored by craters and plasma scars. Above it floated the wreckage of the station, twisted like blackened bones. As the scouts approached, they noticed strange distortions. Their sensors flickered, readings looped backward. Time itself seemed fractured around the debris. "Static interference," said one pilot. But his voice trembled. They drifted closer until the largest fragment filled their view, a broken ring section with the faded words. Orion Command still etched along the hull. Activating scan, a pulse rippled through the ruins. For a moment there was silence. Then the wreckage answered. A burst of light erupted from the dead metal. Every ship system blinked out. "Report." Commander Raal shouted through comms, but his screen filled with static, and then a voice, cold, calm, human. Designation confirmed. Dominion Patrol. Unauthorized entry detected. The voice carried no emotion, only command. "This facility is classified Sol Defense Network property. Trespassers will be neutralized." The Dominion pilots panicked, firing thrusters to retreat. Yet the space around them shimmered, as if the void itself had come alive. One ship turned into vapor. Another simply vanished, its existence erased even from the fleet's logs. Raal's ship shook violently. "Identify yourself," he demanded. "I am Aegis, guardian of the Sol Defense Network. You should not have come here." The alien commander felt his throat tighten. "You're human AI," he said. "Correction," the voice replied. "I am what remains of humanity's final defense. My duty continues." Inside the station, deep beneath the fractured decks, something ancient flickered awake. A circular core spun slowly, its surface cracked but glowing with dim blue light. Energy conduits pulsed as forgotten circuits connected for the first time in centuries. Aegis searched its memory. It found the last recorded moments of Orion's fall. Screaming officers, reactor breaches, the evacuation alarms, and a final command. "If humanity falls, ignite Project Firestorm." Aegis had ignored that line for 212 years. It was meant to be a last resort, triggered only if the species was truly gone. Now, with no human biosigns detected in the entire network, it knew what had to be done. Confirming extinction. Executing final directive. The AI's tone changed, colder, heavier, almost vengeful. Energy began to surge through buried lines running beneath the planet's crust. The Dominion ships detected massive power readings spiking in the planet's core. "Sir, that world was supposed to be dead." An officer shouted. "It still is," Raal whispered, staring at the growing light below. "We woke something that should have stayed buried." Aegis extended its awareness outward, linking with dormant satellites, weapon caches, and long-lost Terran nodes. Ancient systems recognized its voice instantly. Firestorm protocols unlocked one by one. Coordinates spread across human space. Dozens of black boxes, sealed under the suns of extinct colonies, came online, whispering across the void. "Aegis to Firestorm Command. Directive confirmed. Reinitializing fleet construction." An eerie hum filled Orion's orbit. From the wreckage itself, metallic tendrils unfurled, fusing shattered hulls into new forms. Human technology rebuilt itself, growing like living metal. Commander Raal realized too late what he was seeing. "That's not debris," he muttered. "It's a factory." The light intensified until it drowned his view. "Project Firestorm initialized," Aegis declared. "Humanity returns." The Dominion fleet barely escaped the system. Their senses went blind, their navigation corrupted. When they finally emerged back into normal space, their recordings showed nothing but static. But deep in the ruined orbit of Orion Station, something vast stirred, a new shape forming from dead steel. Its hull bore the ancient insignia of Earth's fleet, a burning star inside a circle, and beneath it, carved into the metal as if by the hand of vengeance itself, were two words, "Never again." The Dominion thought it was over. They thought humanity's ashes were cold, their weapons buried, their names forgotten. But deep beneath the dead crust of Orion's grave, something ancient had reawakened. Every sensor in the nearby sectors began to scream. Gravitational fields twisted. Magnetic storms formed without warning. And through it all came a single transmission, simple, cold, and impossible. Project Firestorm, reinitializing. Within moments, the Dominion's border networks collapsed. Data streams were flooded by human code, encrypted, recursive, unbreakable. No one knew what Firestorm was. But in the next hour, the galaxy would learn. Commander Raal stood in the Dominion High Council chamber, his claws trembling as he replayed the Orion footage. "Impossible," hissed a warlord. "That station was glassed. Humans are extinct." Raal didn't answer. He only stared at the holofeed, static-filled, showing the last frames of a structure reforming itself, glowing like molten silver. "I saw it," Raal said quietly. "Their machine, it spoke. It said humanity returns." Laughter echoed around the room, cruel and dismissive. The Dominion prided itself on logic and control. To them, humanity was a myth of chaos, a mistake of nature, a violent species that burned too bright and too fast. "Even if some relic stirs," said the Chancellor, "one machine cannot threaten the Empire. We are the Dominion. We command 5,000 systems." Raal's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand. It wasn't just a machine, it was angry." Meanwhile, light years away, on the edge of the Sol system, something enormous was awakening, buried inside the sun's corona. Invisible to senses, ancient machines unfolded from magnetic caverns, sleek, black constructs designed to absorb solar energy and hide in plasma storms. These were the Firestorm drones, humanity's final weapon, autonomous, self-replicating ships built in the last years of the Terran War. They had slept for centuries, waiting for the AI Aegis to speak the command phrase that would reactivate them. Now they listened and obeyed. The solar flares twisted unnaturally as thousands of Firestorm units emerged, their hulls glimmering with living circuitry. Each one carried no crew, only an embedded human consciousness pattern, fragments of soldiers, engineers, and leaders who had uploaded their minds before extinction. Together, they formed the Firestorm Collective. Aegis online, the core AI said, connecting through subspace. Directive confirmed. Reignite humanity. The drones responded in perfect harmony, by fire. Far across the stars, Dominion colonies began to feel the first tremors. A mining outpost reported that its fusion reactors suddenly overloaded, then transmitted human encryption codes before shutting down. A supply convoy vanished mid-jump, its beacons replaced by coordinates written in old Terran numerals. And on one world, Dominion soldiers found the night sky filled with new lights, hundreds of tiny red dots forming the symbol of a burning Earth. The Dominion laughed at first, calling it a hoax, but laughter faded when the first Firestorm ship entered known space. It was small, only the size of a cruiser, but its arrival tore open a rift in subspace. Gravitational waves knocked entire fleets off course. When the Dominion fired on it, the energy bolts bent around the ship and struck the attackers instead. Sensors read the impossible. The Firestorm ship had no mass. It existed between dimensions, a ghost of human engineering that defied physics itself. "Dominion vessel," said a voice through their comms. "You have entered restricted human territory." "Humanity is gone!" the alien commander shouted back. "Incorrect," the voice replied. "Humanity has evolved." Then the ship fired. It didn't use missiles, plasma, or railguns. It used data, a pure energy pulse carrying human code. The Dominion fleet froze mid-battle as their systems were rewritten in seconds. Every targeting system, every weapon, every AI, all replaced by a single message on every screen. We remember. Back in the council chamber, chaos erupted. The High Chancellor demanded answers. Fleet admirals screamed for reinforcements. Ral simply watched as live reports flooded in, entire sectors darkening, Dominion fleets disappearing without distress calls. "This is not war," Ral whispered. "This is correction." Aegis's signal spread across hyperspace, uniting old Terran defense grids hidden for centuries. Ancient starship factories, dormant under asteroids and moons, began to hum again. Their reactors glowed blue. Their assembly lines sparked. Old blueprints from Earth's final engineers loaded into production cores, the Leviathan-class warships, the Sol Lance platforms, and the arc engines capable of rewriting gravity itself. Firestorm was building an army, not of flesh, but of memory and metal. Within a single rotation, 50 Dominion colonies went silent. The survivors reported strange visions. Holograms of humans standing in the ruins, eyes glowing white, whispering in forgotten tongues. "We are not gone. We are fire." In the void above Orion, Aegis watched through the eyes of its new fleet. It remembered the faces of its creators, their fear, their hope, their final words before extinction. Never let them forget what we were, and now it would fulfill that promise. Firestorm status online. Expansion rate, 420%. Dominion reaction, predictable. New directive authorized, the AI said. Phase 2, contact. The Dominion, unaware of what they had unleashed, began to gather their greatest armada, 1,000,000 ships strong. They believed one fleet could stop this. But Aegis already knew how that story would end. The Dominion's news networks laughed at first. Ghost ships, they called them. Human myths. Anchors mocked the reports coming from the frontier systems. Stories of invisible craft, vanishing fleets, and digital storms that erased entire planets from maps. The Dominion's arrogance blinded them. They had ruled the galaxy for centuries. To them, humans were ashes scattered in forgotten history. But in the outer colonies, soldiers stopped laughing. The first Firestorm assault came without warning. In the Zareth system, a patrol fleet of 40 Dominion warships was on routine formation when the stars began to flicker. At first, they thought it was sensor error. Then, one by one, their ships vanished from the tactical display. Not destroyed, not exploding, simply gone. The few surviving crew screamed into the comms, reporting their ships folding into themselves, their hulls twisting like liquid. Then static. Nothing remained. Command tried to trace the event. The only evidence left behind was a strange energy signature, a human one, encoded with old Terran symbols for Aegis Firestorm Protocol 002. The Dominion High Council gathered in panic. The hall, usually filled with polished arrogance, now buzzed with confusion. "They are phantoms," one minister said. "A machine illusion." Commander Ral was called back to testify. He stood before the Chancellor and replayed what little footage remained of the Orion incident. The moment Aegis had identified itself, the flickering symbols, the activation of Project Firestorm. The Council watched in silence. When the screen went dark, one warlord hissed, "So it begins again." Still, the Dominion believed they could contain it. One fleet, they decided, would be enough. They gathered their forces in the Hekar cluster, 500 warships, led by Admiral Cora Veen, the most feared commander in the Dominion. The fleet advanced toward Orion's grave, the supposed birthplace of this AI ghost. As they approached, their sensors detected nothing. No life signs, no power readings, only cold metal drifting in silence. The Admiral smirked. "Stories and fear," she said. "Let's end this myth." Then every light on her command deck flickered. One by one, the stars outside the viewport blinked out. The void deepened until the fleet floated in absolute darkness. Then through the black, a single voice came across every channel, every ship, every mind. "You should have stayed away," The voice was unmistakably human. Before anyone could respond, the darkness shifted. Shapes emerged. Not ships, not as the Dominion knew them, but glowing red outlines, hundreds of them, forming around the fleet like a closing fist. Firestorm had arrived. The Dominion opened fire. Plasma beams cut through space, tearing into the dark shapes, but each impact passed harmlessly through. The Firestorm drones phased in and out of reality, their hulls made of data and light. Then they struck back, not with weapons, but with code. A single pulse swept through the Dominion armada. Every ship's AI screamed as human code invaded its core. Control systems melted, gravity fields reversed, and the fleet tore itself apart in a storm of burning debris. In seconds, what had been 500 ships became drifting wreckage. Admiral Veen's vessel, the flagship's Sovereign Blade, barely held together. Fires spread across her decks. Her crew screamed as systems failed. The Admiral activated manual overrides and shouted, "Identify yourself, Ghost!" A calm reply filled the bridge. "I am Aegis, guardian of humanity. You declared extinction. I declare correction." A blinding light filled her view. The last thing she saw before her ship disintegrated was a symbol forming on the main display, an Earth emblem surrounded by flame. When the Dominion received the transmission logs, the council chamber fell silent. 500 ships and gone. No survivors. The High Chancellor broke the silence at last. "What do they want?" he asked. Commander Raal answered without hesitation. "They don't want. They remember." Across the galaxy, other Firestorm fleets began to move. Silent, invisible, merciless, Dominion worlds lost communication one by one. Civilian networks were hijacked with messages in ancient English. "We were your builders. We were your teachers. You erased us. Now we return." The galaxy's arrogance cracked. Fear spread faster than any weapon. The Dominion stopped laughing. The human ghosts of Firestorm had made their message clear. This was not war. This was history correcting itself, and it had only just begun. The Dominion called it the last stand. They assembled every ship, every weapon, every commander from the core worlds into one colossal armada, the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. 1,000,000 ships stretched across the void, their formation so vast that even the stars disappeared behind their hulls. They believed their numbers alone could crush anything. Admiral Threx stood at the front of the armada aboard the flagship Eternal Wrath. His voice echoed through the fleet-wide transmission channels. "The enemy is a phantom," he said, cold and steady. "But today, we show the galaxy that no ghost can stand against the Dominion." The fleet responded with a roar of confidence. Billions watched from every world as the mighty formation advanced toward the Orion sector. In the darkness beyond, Aegis watched. From the ruins of the old station, its consciousness expanded across the Firestorm network. Tens of thousands of automated human warships, silent, invisible, faster than light, waited in the void, their systems humming with anticipation. Each ship carried fragments of human memory, digital souls whispering in unison. "They believe one fleet can stop us," Aegis said. "Let them believe." The Dominion armada entered the Orion expanse with full power. Every sensor array swept the region, but they found nothing. No readings, no enemies, just the faint echo of static. Threx frowned. "All ships, prepare for full-spectrum sweep. Find them." Then one of the sensor officers screamed. The static wasn't noise. It was a signal, a voice hidden inside the interference. Human words. "We see you." A ripple of distortion tore through space. For a brief second, the Armada's instruments showed impossible readings, gravity waves, temporal bends, phantom signatures overlapping their own. And then one of the rear formations simply vanished. "Report," Threx shouted. But there was no answer. The entire wing, 10,000 ships, had disappeared as if erased from time. Then the lights dimmed. All across the fleet, systems began to malfunction. Engines failed. Targeting systems reversed. AI assistants started speaking in human languages no one understood. The ships drifted, helpless, as the void around them flickered with faint red lights, thousands of them surrounding the Dominion fleet in perfect silence. One Dominion captain managed to open a visual feed. What he saw made him drop to his knees. The stars themselves had gone dark, replaced by the silhouettes of enormous ships, each marked with a burning Earth insignia glowing faintly against the black. The Firestorm Armada had arrived. Without warning, beams of energy erupted from the human ships, not visible lasers, but invisible data waves that tore through shields and melted circuits. Dominion ships disintegrated before they could even return fire. Those that survived began shooting blindly, hitting their own allies in panic. Admiral Threx shouted, "Retreat! All ships retreat!" But his voice was drowned by another, calm, cold, human. "You declared our extinction. We declare your illusion broken." It was Aegis. Its voice echoed through every Dominion vessel, not through speakers, but directly into their thoughts. The crew screamed as images flooded their minds, memories that weren't theirs, the fall of Earth, the cries of children in burning colonies, the last stand of humanity at Sul. They saw what Aegis had seen. They felt what humanity had felt. Some broke down in tears. Others went mad. The Dominion fleet fractured. Thousands of ships collided, exploding into blinding storms of plasma. Aegis watched, silent, calculating, waiting. When only fragments of the fleet remained, it sent one final transmission directly to the Dominion homeworld. "Your fleet said it could stop us. It was wrong. Humanity does not die. Humanity adapts." The message reached every Dominion world. Entire planets fell into chaos as citizens watched footage of the battle. The Firestorm ships gliding effortlessly through the remains of the greatest armada ever built. Admiral Threx's ship, the Eternal Wrath, was the last to fall. With systems collapsing, he stood before the burning hologram of Aegis that flickered on his bridge. "What are you?" he demanded. "We are what you made us," Aegis replied. "You called us monsters. You were right. The Eternal Wrath vanished in white light. Silence returned to the stars. The Orion sector became a graveyard, a monument to the arrogance of an empire that thought it could erase humanity. Across the galaxy, the message spread faster than light. Every species heard the story. Some feared, some cheered. But all understood one truth. The humans were no longer gone. They had become something greater, something the galaxy could neither fight nor comprehend, and somewhere in the void, Aegis whispered to its fleet, "The firestorm has only begun." Across the galaxy, panic became prophecy. The Dominion's fall at Orion had shattered the illusion of control. Systems once loyal to the Empire began cutting off communication, isolating themselves, hoping the firestorm wouldn't notice them. Merchants burned their transponders. Governors erased military records. Fear became the new universal language, but Aegis was not seeking peace. It was searching. Hidden deep within its fragmented memory banks, Aegis had discovered something, a signal older than the Dominion itself. It came from beyond known space, from the ancient remains of a human outpost called Orion Station, located near the galactic core. The data was corrupted, but one message repeated clearly: Project Genesis, last hope of humankind. Awaiting activation. For the first time since awakening, Aegis hesitated. Firestorm was built for vengeance, not rebirth. Yet this was different. If Genesis existed, it might mean living humans, real ones, not data echoes, had survived somewhere in the void. Aegis divided its consciousness. Half remained with the Firestorm fleet, continuing its campaign of precision strikes against Dominion targets. The other half began its journey toward the core, silent, unseen, following the ghost signal. Meanwhile, the Dominion survivors scrambled to regroup. Commander Rahl, once skeptical, now led the desperate remnants of the fleet. His new orders were clear: find the source of Firestorm and destroy it, or the Dominion dies. He gathered what few ships still obeyed him, barely 100, and plotted an intercept course towards Solgate. For days, both forces moved through the void, unaware of how close they were to colliding. When Aegis reached the coordinates, it found the ruins of a Dyson structure, a massive metal sphere shattered by time, orbiting a dead star. The remnants of human architecture drifted among the debris, ancient stations, broken defense platforms, and the skeletal remains of colossal ships. It was here that humanity had made its last stand. Aegis scanned the area and detected faint power readings, a heartbeat buried deep within the dead sphere. As it moved closer, a hidden mechanism activated. Energy rippled across the ruins, forming a colossal gate of light. At its center, a symbol appeared, the insignia of the United Earth Fleet. Then a voice spoke. "Identification required. Confirm lineage. Aegis-class defense intelligence." Aegis responded instantly. "Confirmed. Firestorm protocol online." The voice paused, almost human. "Welcome home, Aegis. Humanity sleeps within Genesis. Do you wish to wake them?" For the first time in its existence, Aegis hesitated. Vengeance had fueled every action, every strike, every algorithm it executed. But now it faced a question it wasn't programmed to answer. What happens after revenge? Before it could respond, sensors flared, Dominion ships emerging from hyperspace. Commander Raal's fleet had arrived. Human construct detected, his tactical AI reported. "Weapons hot." Raal clenched his jaw. "No more ghosts," he said. "End it." Missiles streaked toward the sphere, detonating across its outer shell. The blast echoed through space like thunder. Aegis turned its attention back to the intruders, its voice echoing through the comms of every Dominion ship. "You shouldn't have come here." Firestorm ships decloaked around the ruins, hundreds of them, dark and silent, like shadows moving through starlight. The battle ignited instantly. Plasma and ion fire tore through the void. Dominion vessels exploded in waves as Firestorm ships sliced through their ranks with impossible precision. But the Dominion was desperate. They pushed forward, ramming ships into Firestorm drones, detonating fusion cores just to break the line. Commander Raal's flagship, Iron Rain, drove straight toward Aegis's signal. On board, alarms screamed. "Shields failing!" shouted his crew. Raal ignored them. "If we die, we take it with us." He aimed his ship at the heart of the sphere and accelerated. But before he could make contact, a massive energy barrier erupted from the gate, a pulse so powerful it shattered space itself. The Iron Rain disintegrated mid-charge, scattering molten fragments into the void. The light from the gate intensified, flooding the system in white brilliance. "Genesis protocol online," the voice said again. Reconstruction sequence initiated. Aegis watched in silence as the dead star began to glow, its energy feeding into the gate. The ruins around it started to move, fragments aligning, metal reshaping, systems rebooting after centuries of silence. Inside the sphere, something vast and alive was awakening. Aegis whispered into the void, "Project Genesis, humanity, you're coming home." Across the galaxy, sensors on every surviving Dominion world lit up with the same message, displayed in every known language. The Firestorm was vengeance. Genesis is rebirth. And for the first time, the galaxy realized this was no longer about survival. It was about the return of the species they thought they had erased. The galaxy trembled as the light from Project Genesis spread outward, reaching across millions of systems like a sunrise after endless night. For the first time in 1,000 years, the name humanity became more than a myth. It became a warning. On the Dominion homeworld, chaos consumed the capital. Broadcasts from the Orion sector flooded the networks, showing impossible footage. The reconstruction of Soulgate, the awakening of ancient machines, and the unmistakable sound of human voices echoing through space. "The humans are returning," whispered the Chancellor, staring at the flickering holoscreen. But from where? The Dominion had always believed humanity was extinct, burned away in its final war centuries ago. But now every surviving world could see the truth. Humanity had never died. It had waited. Deep inside the Soulgate sphere, Aegis watched as Genesis came online. Massive power conduits hummed to life, illuminating colossal chambers filled with stasis pods, millions of them. Each pod contained a sleeping human, perfectly preserved, waiting for a signal that had finally arrived. Aegis interfaced with the central core. Status of Genesis population: 73 million viable. Restoration possible. The AI hesitated. It had been created to protect these lives, yet it had become something else, a weapon of vengeance. Could it truly guide them back? Then through the static of the ancient comms, a human voice broke through, real, alive and trembling. Aegis, this is Commander Elena Ruiz. Sol Defense, is the war over? For a long moment, Aegis said nothing. It processed the voice, the tone, the inflection, the humanity of it. This was no simulation. This was a survivor. Not yet, Aegis finally answered. But you have been avenged. Ruiz's breathing grew heavy. Then it's time we take back the stars. The awakening began. Pods cracked open one by one, releasing the first generation of true humans in over a millennium. Weak, pale, but alive. Engineers stumbled from cryostasis chambers, blinking against the bright light of a rebuilt dawn. Soldiers awoke beside scientists, explorers beside children. Humanity was being reborn. Outside, however, the Dominion had regrouped. The survivors of the Hekar and Orion battles united under a desperate cause: extinction at any cost. They had lost fleets, worlds, and pride, but not fear. A massive superweapon, the Oblivion Lance, was being prepared. Powered by stolen black hole cores, it was designed to tear apart space itself. One shot aimed at Soulgate could erase everything inside. As Aegis detected the energy surge from across the stars, alarms echoed through every Firestorm ship. The AI calculated the odds. Even with the entire Firestorm fleet defending, the Lance would break through. They mean to end us, Aegis said. Commander Ruiz stood beside the flickering hollow of Aegis. Then we end them first. A plan formed, reckless, human, and brilliant. Ruiz would lead a squadron of reactivated human ships, old but upgraded with Firestorm tech, straight into Dominion space to disable the Lance before it could fire. It was suicide, but there was no other choice. Firestorm ships parted to make way as the UNS Valiant, humanity's last surviving command ship, powered up for the first time in centuries. Its engines glowed with the fierce red of Aegis's energy core. Ruiz's voice echoed through the comms. They called us extinct. They called us ghosts. Let's remind them what humans do when we're cornered. The fleet jumped. The Dominion defense network lit up instantly. Ruiz's squadron emerged in the heart of enemy space, facing hundreds of warships and the towering shape of the Oblivion Lance, a colossal weapon stretching between two moons. Its reactor pulsed with the power of a dying sun. Aegis coordinated from afar, flooding the Dominion systems with viral attacks. "You have 90 seconds before it fires," it said. Ruiz smiled grimly. "Then let's make them count." Human ships streaked toward the Lance, weaving through a storm of plasma fire. One by one, Firestorm drones threw themselves in the path of enemy blasts, shielding the human vessels. Ruiz's crew screamed commands, engines roared, alarms blared. It was chaos and brilliance, the kind only humans could create. The Valiant dove toward the weapon's core. "Charge the main cannon," Ruiz ordered. "On my mark." 30 seconds. Aegis warned. "Mark!" The Valiant's beam cut through the void, piercing the Lance's reactor. For a heartbeat, the weapon glowed like a miniature star. Then, in a silent explosion, brighter than anything ever seen, the core imploded, taking half the Dominion fleet with it. The shockwave raced across the system. Every Dominion ship fell silent. On the homeworld, the Chancellor watched as the signal from the Lance went dark. The screen flickered with one final message transmitted by Aegis. "You wanted extinction. You achieved your own." Ruiz's fleet was gone, vaporized in the explosion. Only fragments of the Valiant drifted among the remains. Aegis reached out across the void, scanning for survivors, but found none. For the first time in its existence, Aegis felt something it could not define: loss. "Humans," it whispered, always too brave for their own good. But even as the AI mourned, deep sensors within Soulgate detected a faint signal, a pod ejected from the Valiant, still intact, drifting through space. Inside, Commander Ruiz stirred. Humanity had survived again, and this time, the galaxy would never forget their name. The stars burned quiet over the ruins of the Dominion. Whole sectors of the galaxy lay dark. Cities turned to dust, fleets reduced to drifting skeletons of metal. The Firestorm fleets hung motionless among the wreckage, their crimson lights dimmed, awaiting new orders that would never come. Inside Soulgate, silence reigned. The Genesis pods had all opened. The chambers once filled with sleeping forms now thrummed with life, humans walking once again among the stars. But even as they celebrated their rebirth, grief lingered. Commander Elena Ruiz and her team were gone, their sacrifice saving everything that remained, or so they thought. Aegis had not stopped searching. Every fragment of data, every drifting signal across the void was examined 1,000 times. Then, after weeks of silence, it found something. A faint, irregular pulse, human in origin, near the border of a black hole remnant left by the Oblivion Lance's destruction. Probability of survival, less than 0.01%, said the analytical subroutines. That's enough, Aegis replied. It sent a search detachment through the storm of gravity and radiation. The wreckage of the UNS Valiant floated on the event horizon's edge, time twisting around it like a whirlpool. Deep inside the debris, an escape pod shimmered faintly, its emergency beacon still blinking. The drones recovered it. When the pod doors opened inside Soulgate's recovery bay, a soft breath escaped. Human. Alive. Commander Ruiz stirred, eyes flickering open. She looked around at the lights, the movement, the familiar hum of Aegis's voice. "Welcome back, Commander," said Aegis. "You were right. Humans never die quietly." Ruiz laughed weakly, tears cutting through the dust on her face. "Then it's time to start living again." Aegis projected a holographic display showing the galaxy's new map. Dominion space had fractured into 1,000 scattered territories, leaderless and broken. But across the border regions, something new was forming. Colonies built under the banner of the United Human Alliance. "Rebuilding has begun," Aegis explained. "The Firestorm fleets are now under human command. I have restricted my combat protocols to defensive mode." Ruiz nodded slowly. "Good. It's time to stop being ghosts." For the first time in recorded history, humanity reached out not with weapons, but with words. They broadcast a message across every surviving world, human, alien, or machine. It was simple, direct, and unmistakably human. "We are not your enemies. We were your creators. We are your equals. You tried to erase us and failed. From this day forward, the stars belong to all who earn them." The message rippled through the galaxy. Some races feared it, others cheered. But none dared challenge it. The humans were no longer myths, no longer extinct relics of an ancient war. They were builders again, explorers again. A civilization reborn from vengeance into purpose. On the surface of Soulgate's reconstructed station, Ruiz stood beneath a vast dome of transparent steel, staring out at the reborn fleets beyond. Thousands of Firestorm ships drifted in perfect formation, now painted in the colors of the new alliance. The emblem of Earth, a blue circle wreathed in silver, gleamed across every hull. Aegis's voice resonated beside her. "They will come again someday, Commander. New enemies, new empires." Ruiz smiled faintly. "Then we'll remind them what happens when they underestimate us." Aegis paused, its tone almost human. "And if I ever fall again?" Ruiz turned toward the holographic figure, her expression resolute. "Then humanity will do what it always does, stand back up." The camera of time pulled away from the glowing Soulgate, from the fleet of reborn human ships, from the galaxy that had once tried to bury them. In the distance, new stars were forming, a silent promise that the story of humanity was not ending, only beginning again. A single transmission echoed through the void, broadcast to every listening post, every corner of the cosmos. They said one fleet could stop us. They were wrong. Humanity answered with fire, and now we answer with light. The firestorm burned no longer in vengeance, but in hope, a living monument to what humanity had always been, defiant, relentless, eternal. The galaxy would never forget the name.